involved in mineral exploitation in Africa, usually it's accompanied by a degree of infrastructure investment, which sounds very generous and with great largesse, but in reality, building a railway line or a road that leads from a mine to a port could be construed as being mainly in the interest of getting the minerals out of the ground into the port, unless I've misunderstood the motive entirely, which is of course possible. And so I think one has to recognise that the Chinese companies might do it slightly differently, but there are huge issues about the training or lack of training of African workers to operate in those places, and the pricing that is paid, and also the huge degree of soft loans that are made to certain countries in return for purchasing of Chinese goods over the next X number of years, or the supply of minerals or oil at a fixed price. So for example, there was a massive $2 billion loan made to Angola in about 6 years ago, I think it was, maybe I might not be right on the exact date. The price paid by China for the oil from Angola remains unrevealed, and the amount of goods that have to be bought from China in return remains unrevealed. And so you have a relationship there that is extremely unclear to an awful lot of people, and that is repeated elsewhere across the continent. And I think that the political relationship is slightly different in the sense that China doesn't as overtly interfere in local politics as the way in which Americans or British traditionally have, but certainly the economic pull is enormous, so that when the Chinese Prime Minister invited African leaders to come to a conference in Beijing on future trade with Africa, I think I'm right in saying every single country attended, bar none. They wouldn't attend any other conference, bar none, anywhere in the world, even for the UN, I doubt. So that was a sign of just how powerful Chinese purchasing is. The other point that was made about South Africa, yes, the Jamestown raid and what went with it, and Cecil Rhodes. But remember, that came actually, Rhodes and the establishment of Fort Salisbury, and he didn't just have a town and a university named after him, he had several countries named after himself as well, Rhodesia, both north and south. He was also a member of the British Parliament, so he wasn't the first or last corrupt person to be in the British Parliament. That came after the Congress of Berlin. That was 1884. Fort Salisbury was established from memory 1890. That was the founding of Rhodesia. And so the history is certainly there. My concluding thought is this. I'm really pleased we've got this quite short session on Africa today. I recommend you buy the book that Expo talked about, and also since you've all registered for Stop the War, I'll be able to get hold of email addresses that way, if I may, if you're happy about it. Circulate the information about the Liberation meeting we're holding on Africa on January the 14th, and those that wish to come, of course, will be most welcome to attend that, because we've got to recognise the new imperialism is about political control, is about mineral exploitation, is about land grabbing. It's not that different to exactly what happened during what was seen as the height of the colonial era in the late 19th through to the mid-20th century. My sorrow is that the joy of all those people that fought for and obtained independence in the 1950s and 1960s was largely destroyed on the altar of high oil prices, high interest rates, World Bank intervention and World Bank economic modelling, which has destroyed the economic independence of so much of Africa. And I think these are issues that we have to concentrate on, because they also lead to the military interventions.
The issue of China, once there is economic control of any people, then automatically there's political impotence. And apart from what we've been talking about, another strange development in the case of China has been, in addition to the formal economic arrangements, the coming in of illegal Chinese migrants and who do illegal mining. In fact, Ghana, in which I live, is one of the places, I think people might have seen it in the news, where people confronting even the illegal Chinese miners have been confronted with guns. Chinese have used guns to confront people in Ghana in particular, and it's been a great embarrassment even for the Chinese embassy in Ghana about this. I don't know whether that's repeated across other countries, but that's specific from our country. The issue of democracy, in fact, there is no form of democracy that can be introduced by other external forces to anybody. The fact that true democracy can only develop from within the people themselves. And one thing we want to point out is that Africans have also been fighting to ensure that they have control of their resources. They've been fighting through social movements and that. And just like during the anti-apartheid struggle, we had the anti-apartheid movement here. I think that groups like the Stop the War Coalition, other groups where we find a common way of working, fighting against negative causes, we should be able to solidarize and have the movements which are standing for the interests of the people, but because of the support of the oppressive governments and the multinationals and all those other external forces here, they push the wrong guys in control. So we have to push the wrong guys out and from below get an alternative. And when that happens, then you will have the people's interest in Africa being advanced. And that is what groups like Kilombo and Don't Be Blind are involved in. We have a number of our people here, we have a number of our members here. After this session, you can approach any of us. I'm sure they can just show them by their hands, so I don't have to call them Don't Be Blind and Kilombo. You see them, Jeremy has always been part of Kilombo. I'm happy he's here, and I'm sure the work that he's been doing with us, when I leave, he will do the same work with my colleagues who are here. We've not done much together of late, so Jeremy, I'm sure you will be able to. And I'll say thank you all for being here, and thank you all for giving me company at this particular point in time. And this world cannot remain like this. It can change.
Wrap up, a few final words from me. As the two speakers have so eloquently said, and I'll use the phrase, another world is possible, but in order for that different world to be achieved, it needs the input of everybody who has, and I use the term, thirst for social justice. Because that's what it's about. It's about changing the world so every man, woman and child, the ordinary people who walk the streets of Britain, Africa, as an African I'm particularly concerned for Africa, enjoy the fruits of their labour, enjoy the fruits of the land. We've been told by Blair, Bush, Cameron, Obama, notice Conservatives and Labour, Republicans and Democrats, we're told there's so much, this is the democracy, that there is a war on terror. I'd like us all to go away with a thought about what is terror. For me, war is terror. For those children in the Congo, the women in Liberia, Sierra Leone, people across the world who are terrorized and have been terrorized day in, day out by remote-controlled drones, like people are sitting down playing PlayStations, by the West using puppets in Africa and different parts of the world to wage their wars. They know that war is terror. And again, if all of us in this room have that thirst for social justice, we won't just come to this conference here today and go away. What we will do is go away and think about the next step we can each take to make that other world possible. And thank you for listening.